So, welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to our Mission and Values lecture that takes place every year here at the School of Nursing, and we are so excited about this year's speaker as well. And so, as we move through this session, I would like to invite up Father Mark Bosco, who is the Vice President of Mission and Ministry here at Georgetown University.
Thank you, Dean Waite, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you at this annual values-based lecture sponsored by the School of Nursing's Committee of Mission and Values, and I'm so glad that we can be co-sponsors. I'm looking forward to hearing from our guest. There she is, Brenda Richardson, especially because the title of her talk is Care for Our Common Home. And that's a phrase that we at Georgetown have taken upon ourselves, have really taken hold of, and have now named as one of our Spirit of Georgetown values. Those values we say that form who we say we are and how we want to be in the world and serve the world. So Georgetown chose that phrase. Maybe just do a little background before Brenda's introduced. Chose that phrase, care for our common home, after a long discussion with faculty, staff, and students following a reading of Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. Indeed, it's called Laudato Si: Care for Our Common Home. Laudato Si was a letter to the whole world on environmental sustainability and environmental justice. Laudato Si in Latin means praise be to you. And it was the first words of St. Francis of Assisi in his great hymn to the God of creation, praise be to you, O Lord. And so a sense that we need to reverence our environment and reverence our sense of stewardship of our environment. This document, this encyclical Laudato Si, was a worldwide wake-up call to help us understand the destruction that humanity is rendering to the environment and to the rest of humanity. It challenges both believer and non-believer. And from the outset, the Holy Father states that the goal of this document was to enter into a new dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet. He focuses on a call to conversion, noting that the ecological crisis is a summons to a profound ecological conversion in us, this care for our common home. I would like to offer just two brief quotes from this document, or it looks like I have three brief quotes from this document, and it helps us to see how important our work together here at Georgetown is and the work of our guest speaker, Ms. Richardson. This is from Pope Francis. We urgently need a humanism capable of bringing together the different fields of knowledge, including economics and health policy, in the service of a more integral and integrating vision. He says, interdependence obliges us to think of one world with a common plan. Yet the same ingenuity which has brought about enormous technological progress has so far proved incapable of finding effective ways of dealing with grave environmental and social problems of our world. And the last one, he says many things have to change. Many things have to change course, but it is we human beings above all who need to change. We lack an awareness of our common origin, of our mutual belonging, and of a future to be shared with everyone. This basic awareness would enable the development of new convictions, attitudes, and forms of life. A great cultural, spiritual, and educational challenge stands before us, and it will demand that we set out on the long path of renewal. So as a university, and the School of Nursing especially represents this spirit, this value, this spirit of care for our common home, is really a commitment to integrate care for our home into the pedagogy of our teaching, as well as into the spiritual formation of our students, no matter what, whether they're undergrads, grads, whatever. Indeed, scholarship continues to show how related and overlapping the issues around the environment and are in the health and well-being of people as well as our planet. It is still the word. It's been the word for the last 25 years in education, interdisciplinary, right? How do we do to solve problems we're going to have to move beyond just the silos of disciplines, but really work together. Likewise, ecological justice is health justice. I think that that's what we're saying. For the environmental crisis disproportionately affects the poor and the marginalized of our society. And another phrase from our Jesuit heritage exhorts our community to do all things, I have to say some Latin here, ad maiorem Dei gloriam. Actually, this is the second Latin. We did, of course, Laudato Si is in Latin, but ad maiorem Dei gloriam. You see that on the banners around Georgetown. May it be for the greater glory of God. So caring for our common home is a conversion to do the greater action, the greater good, the deeper impact. Finally, we need to be committed to be contemplatives in action, taking a critical stance toward media and technology that causes what I call mental pollution, right? Keeps us from learning to live wisely, to think deeply, and to love generously. And thus, I'm so happy that we can nurture this invitation to live wisely, think deeply, and love generously through this lecture and through the time we have with our speaker today. I now invite Lois Wessel, Associate Professor in the School of Nursing, to formally introduce Brenda Richardson.
Thank you, Father Bosco. So I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing Brenda. But I want to start out by saying last year around Thanksgiving time, my husband and I went to the Anacostia Smithsonian Museum, which is a great and a free museum. I encourage you all to go. And we wanted to see an exhibit about women environmental activists in DC. And we saw this phenomenal exhibit, and I remarked to my husband, wow, this woman, Brenda Richardson, seems really cool. And he's like, yeah, I know her. And usually in our relationship, I know everybody, so it was, big points on his end. And I'm like, do you have her email? Of course, I can introduce you to her. And through that connection, we got to invite Brenda Richardson to our community today. Ms. Richardson is an ecofeminist. I love the term. And she works on a variety of issues, including welfare reform, environmental justice, economic development, behavioral issues, health issues. And as Father Bosco said, all of those issues are integrally connected. Right now, she serves as the coordinator of the Anacostia Parks and Community Collaborative, as well as president of the Chosen Consulting LLC, a consulting company that focuses on community engagement, facilitation, training, and government relations, and is the principal for a group called Women Like Us, an initiative that focuses on design thinking for women. Thank you very much. Many things are not they should have twice as many women's bathrooms as men's bathrooms in most of the places, the public parks that I go to. She's the vice chair of the Friends of Oxon Park and serves as the chair of Friends of the Parkland Turner Library. Again, my comments from her bio here, libraries are really one of the amazing things that we have and is equal access to everybody. And I know with my patients, I prescribe them going to the library as well as going outdoors. So thank you for your work at the library. She's also on the advisory member to the Capital Nature and is a member of the Urban Forest Advisory Council. She serves as the deputy chief of staff for the deputy chief of staff of Councilmember Marion Barry, and she served as the managing director of the Metropolitan Dialogue, a group of people of faith who met monthly to discuss civic activities in D.C. She was the director of the Resident Services for DC Housing Authority and the executive director of the Anacostia Congress Heights Partnership. But she finished those things so she could move on to being a board member of KC Trees, a board member of Potomac Riverkeeper Network, Urban Forestry Advisory Council, Capital Nature, Bridges Across the River, and the Council of Government Access for All Community Council. She was the chairperson of Georgetown Lombardi's Cancer Center, Community Advisory Council right here at Georgetown. She was a member of the Anacostia Watershed Society and many other organizations. She has a BA in science from the University of Michigan and a master's of social work from the University of Maryland. And we are so glad with all of her things that she keeps busy doing that she chose to spend this afternoon with us. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Brenda.
Wow, I had forgotten how many things I had done. My goodness. Thank you all so much for having me here today. I'm very, very grateful to be here at Georgetown. I'll tell you a quick story. It has to do with the Lombardi Center. I remember when they invited me to be a part of the community advisory uh, committee, and I was like, why doesn't Georgetown come east of the river? Why do I have to come all the way to Georgetown to be a part of something that you're trying to connect the river with? Well, you guys eventually opened offices up on Capitol Hill. So I was so grateful because that was much closer to me than coming all the way out here. But I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you about care for our common home. And I took the time to really think about, what does that mean to me? So it may mean one thing to you and your students and your faculty, but what does that mean to me? Care for our common home. But a question came in my mind. Why should I care about my common home? And my common home involves the people that live in disfavored communities. I don't call our communities marginalized. I don't call them vulnerable. I don't call them overburdened, because I got tired of other people dictating who we were. So it was a gift from up above, disfavored. So I always refer to us as disfavored, and we're anxiously awaiting the opportunity to be showered with favor, not only as it relates to our health, physical and mental health, but as it relates to our education, employment, poverty, everything. We're waiting to be showered with favor. So before I get started, I wanted to share a few stories with you, just so everything will just sort of come full circle. I wanted to start with a story that happened in my neighborhood last summer. You guys remember how sweltering hot it was? Well, can you imagine that there are people that did not have air conditioning in their homes? And even though folks had air conditionings, they weren't working. And it was in a public housing community. I won't mention the name, but it was in a public housing community. And so we learned that we had this meeting, and this woman was saying, now I understand why I want to fight all the time. Because first I'm hot, and then I'm hotter, and then I get angry, and then I get intolerable, and then I'm ready to fight. So that was a real eye-opening experience for me, and we were trying to figure out, how do we make sure, in light of climate change, and talk about environmental equity and environmental justice, climate change is here. How do we ensure that every resident of the District of Columbia has air conditioning? You talk about care for your common home. A common home should have air conditioning. Secondly, I want to talk to you about a little boy named Gabe. Gabe is 10 years old. Gabe was across the street from my house one day. I was out in the yard talking to my neighbors. So Gabe was in the apartment complex across the street playing football. So he twisted his ankle. So we were just watching what was going on, and I didn't know him at the time. So Gabe just started, no, he couldn't get up because his ankle had been twisted so badly. So they called his mom. Mom never came. Care for our common home. Mom never came. So one of the neighbors called the fire department. The ambulance came. They had to pick Gabe up because he couldn't walk, and put him in the ambulance. So the security on the property had to walk to his mom's home to get her to come and see about him. The ambulance could not take Gabe to the hospital or do any work on him without his mother's consent. His mom, she's strolling. The security guard gets back. She's just strolling around the corner to get to her son, who's clearly injured. And what does she do? She curses him. Why did you bring me out here? I've got things to do. And all Gabe could do was hold his head down. So the ambulance, she wouldn't even let them wrap his leg. And he ended up, they put him out of the ambulance. He's walking on one leg and he's holding on to his mom. So while the ambulance is there, he's walking, holding on to his mom. As soon as the ambulance left, she did like this. So Gabe had to make it home on his own, care for a common home. So I realized I didn't have my glasses on. So I said, I think I know her. And so I called her name, and I did know her. And she came across the street. And I said, sweetheart, why did you treat your son like that? And she started crying. She was overwhelmed. She was exhausted. She has 4 boys, and she has no help, and she just couldn't manage. And you could just tell that she was traumatized. She was traumatized. So one of the things that I spend a lot of times with you guys in these universities. I was talking to a graduate student that was here from Berkeley, and we were talking about what was going on in the community. And she defined trauma for disfavored communities, not for everybody, but she came up with this brilliant definition for trauma for disfavored communities. She said, trauma is the embodiment of the rejection of Blackness. Trauma is the embodiment of the rejection of Blackness. So, what does that mean? I'm traumatized. And just because I may look a certain way doesn't mean that everything is fine. And why am I traumatized? I'm traumatized because in my disfavored neighborhood, I'm 67 years old. And in my disfavored neighborhood, when I hear gunshots, and I just heard them last Thursday, first thing you have to do is hit the floor because you don't know if the bullet is going to come through your house. And that's something that you have to get used to. I used to call 911 all the time, but I was like, why? Why bother to call 911? Because by the time they get there, they're just looking for bullets and the shooter is gone. Luckily, no one was hurt. Why else am I traumatized? You guys, loud music. Oh, we are so overwhelmed with loud music. And people use the excuse in disfavored communities that it's a part of my culture. I'm from El Paso, Texas. That's not a part of my culture. But they say it's a part of the Ward 8 culture to play loud music in disfavored communities. So I was talking to a military guy, and he said, Brenda, you know, that's a military tactic, to put somebody in a room, lock them up, and play loud music. It just disorients you. It confuses you, and it debilitates you. So that, too, is contributing. That's another layer of my trauma. The other layer of my trauma is fear. So my doctor told me after the pandemic, oh, and I got to tell you about the pandemic. He told me after the pandemic, Brenda, you got to walk. You got to walk. Because when the pandemic happened, we couldn't go anywhere, right? And we were already afraid because of where we live. And so we adopted a sedentary lifestyle. So we're already, Ward 8 has the highest rate of breast cancer in the region, not in DC, but in the DMV. We've got the highest rate of breast cancer. We've got the highest rate of obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure, and asthma among adults and children. And so I was like, what are we supposed to do? I'm too afraid. We've got all these beautiful parks in our neighborhood, but I'm too afraid to walk outside my front door and take a walk for fear that I'm going to be shot, because there are drive-by shootings all the time. And that's real for us. The fear and the trauma is something that we're exposed to 24/7, 7 days a week, every day of our lives. So, what does that mean? It means that I see you all with wounded eyes. I hear what you're saying, Father, with wounded ears. I don't hear the same thing the way that you guys do because of trauma, fear, and now woundedness. Care for a common home. And then when I talk about our community is on life support. You know, I'm laying down, I envision my community, and it's the patches of disfavored, because everybody is not poor in our community, but I'm talking about the patches of our community that are disfavored. And when I was thinking about care for our common home, I was also thinking about we're on life support. And I remember when both my parents were on life support in the hospital and what that was like. You've got tubes coming out of you, and you've got, what's that thing called? You've got a trach in your neck. And that's what it feels like. That's what I would imagine that it feels like. The trauma, the woundedness, and the fear. So we're exhausted. We're exhausted. Do you know taking a walk is a luxury for us? Being able to come on this side of the river is a luxury for us. And folks don't understand, well, why can't you do this and why can't you do that? Oh, and don't let me forget about my anxiety. So our state of mental wellness is not in a good place. It's not in a good place. I do have a story about Georgetown. Oh my God, I have been here many times. So I'll tell you this story. I was here meeting a professor, trying to convince him to come to our community to do something on mental wellness. And I can't believe I did this. This happened 10 years ago. I didn't realize I was traumatized, wounded, and afraid at the time. We were sitting in this meeting, and I don't know what he said, but he said something, and I just started crying. I couldn't stop crying. And I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and he was so gracious and kind. And he said, Brenda, you're traumatized. He said, it's okay. This is your response to trauma. So that's when I realized that that's why folks in my community and disfavored communities respond the way that they do. Because we don't even know that we're traumatized, we're wounded, and we're scared to death. So care for our common home. Sometimes our homes are places of incarceration for us because you're afraid to go outside. But you have to go to the doctor, you have to go shopping, you have to do all these things. And let me tell you about the doctor. So I'll share my experience, is that okay? And then I'll share somebody else's experience. So one day I counted everything that was wrong with me. There were 18 things. 18, from the minor to the major. And you guys, I didn't have the energy to go see another doctor. I've just got so many doctor's appointments, an appointment for this, an appointment for that. And then what do? They put me on more pills. I went from 2 pills yet last year to 8 pills this year. And I was like, well, and then they don't have the time to talk to you. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a herd of cattle and I'm just being herded through the doctor's office because they don't have the time. And then sometimes, and the thing that I challenge, sometimes I wish I was Oprah, because I was like, I know Oprah's got a fabulous doctor. And I know she doesn't have to go here and there and here and there and here and there. And why do I say that? Because I have to find a doctor that appreciates who I am and where I am and understand that sometimes I don't feel like going to a doctor's appointment. Thank goodness for, I was about to say something else. Thank goodness for virtual appointments now. I had one this morning, actually. I'm so, so grateful for that. I've got another colleague, and the other thing about women like us that are leaders in our community, we work so much that we don't know how to turn it off. We don't know how to turn it off. So I have a colleague who's in the same boat I'm in. Her feet are swollen. She has asthma. She's in the hospital in the emergency room at least 3 times a month because the doctor keeps telling her, you need to slow down, you need to slow down. So I at least convinced her not to work on Thursdays. That lasted for about a month, and then she went right back. But that's what I do. I do the same thing. And you know, when you talk about, so when you have a clarion call, you do what you're called to do at your own risk. At your own risk. And sometimes, you know, at this point in my life, I'm just looking, as well as people in my community, because I recognize it with the kids that I work with. That's why I hug everybody. Some people don't like it, but that's cool. But I crave kindness. I crave kindness, a kind word, a kind a gesture, an appreciation that no matter that I live in the neighborhood that I live in, that I'm still a human being. I still deserve to be treated as a human being, not because I'm a Black woman. And I think that's something that I struggled with. When you saw me come into this room, first thing you see is that I'm Black. You knew that I was a woman, but I'm a Black woman. And there's something that comes with that. So imagine being enshrouded with fear and woundedness and what else did I say to see if you're paying attention? Anxiety and trauma. So imagine I'm the embodiment of that. And now I got to deal with the fact that I'm Black. I got to deal with the fact that I'm overweight. Do you know people are not nice to those of us that are overweight? You got to be mindful about where you sit to make sure that the chair can hold you. And some people are just annoyed with women that look like me. So imagine care for our common home. I finally had a chance to make my home my sanctuary because I spend so much time there. I also had a wake-up call when my doctor said, if you don't stop, you're gonna die. He literally told me that, and that was a wake-up call for me. So what I had to do was incorporate my leisure time, my exercise, my health into my work. That's what I had to do because what? I don't know how to turn it off. And to this day, I don't know how to turn it off. And up until 2 years ago, I haven't been on a vacation in 25 years, up until 2 years ago, because it's not something that's within my bandwidth, because I have to work, because of all these things that are going on in the community, because if I don't do it and the other women there, because all of us, the women that are like me, we're all in the same boat. We don't take very good care of ourselves because we're charged with taking care of our community, and now we're charged with taking care of our environment. So the Creator must think we're pretty powerful women if He can add something else on our plate, which He has graciously done, and I get to bear witness to you about what it is that we're going through and what we have to endure. So I will talk about what it is that I do. So I'm with the Anacostia Parks and Coordinating Council, and what we do is we are trying to get more folks in Ward 7 and 8 on the trails in our parks. We're trying to get more folks on the water. You know, one day, pretty soon, the Anacostia River is going to be swimmable. But I believe that at least 50% of us east of the river cannot swim. And I'm one of them. What a wonderful exercise to be able to swim. But we're petrified of the water. So we started this group called Wade in the Water. And there's this woman from Ward 7 who's petrified of drowning. I didn't even get that far. I'm just afraid of the water, let alone drowning. So we came up with this initiative, and speaking of faith, we decided to go to the Ward 7 and Ward 8 clergy because the churches have members who live in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And one of the pastors said she was terrified of the water. So what we decided to do was take them on a boat ride so they can at least be comfortable with being on the water. And we discovered, and yes, I'm going to say this on tape, we discovered that when you take swimming lessons in the District of Columbia, because they offer these aquatic classes, the time opens at 12 o'clock midnight to get a spot for a swimming class. 12 o'clock midnight. And by 2 o'clock in the morning, everything is gone. There are no slots. So I'm looking at these kids in Washington Highland who live a block away from an indoor swimming pool, but they can't take lessons because there are no more slots. So we're trying to do something about that. That's not a good thing to happen just because we live in a disfavored community. Our healthcare system, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you guys are here. I really, really mean that. And I know that when I was at Lombardi with Lois, they had navigators, but that was for breast cancer. And folks don't understand why people in disfavored communities spend most of their time in emergency rooms rather than in a doctor's office. We're too exhausted. The notion of, with everything on my plate, I'm keeping a roof over my head, I'm trying to keep food on the table, and I'm dodging bullets, but I gotta find the wherewithal not only to make appointments for me, but to make appointments for my kids. So you have kids who don't start the school year off because their mom doesn't have the wherewithal to go get their shots because she's so overwhelmed. I think that preventive medicine, I would love to be able to, nature and food and the way this earth was created, it was created so we could take care of ourselves and take care of the earth. But we're not doing that. So I've learned that the processed food is not so good. So I don't have a microwave. I have a son. And when I realized that there were endocorruptors, it's something like that, from microwaving your food. Endocrine corruptors. Is that it, Lois?
Yeah.
When I realized that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to afflict my son with that. So I haven't used a microwave in quite some time. I was telling you guys about what I do. I'm sorry. I'm so glad to be able to tell my story. I don't know what to do. So at the Anacostia Parks and Community Collaborative, we do something called nature-based trauma-informed programming. Nature-based trauma-informed programming. My dear, dear friend, Melanie Chokas Bradley, is a forest bathing guide. Melanie took me forest bathing. It was one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had. We were in our local park, and there was a group of us. Melanie came to the east side of the river. We were in the middle of the park, and you guys, we were standing in the middle of the park just looking up. And cars are driving by, and they're stopping. What are they looking at? We were cloud watching. We were just watching the clouds. And I have to tell you, it calms your spirit. It calms your spirit. She had us take our shoes off and walk in the grass. It calms our spirit. She got leaves off the trees and she had us touch the leaves. And some of them had a scent. And the smell just, it was invigorating. So now, so there are two things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get 1,000 people this year from Ward 7 and 8 on our trails. 1,000 people. So you know what I had to do? I had to buy some iPads. APAC had to buy some iPads because there has to be some incentive. You can't expect people to just, you've got all this trauma and exhaustion going on, so you have to respect people's time. And so we invested in iPads. The first trail walk we had in February, there was 187 people. And we did that with DPR, Department of Parks and Recreation, and the hike crew. So we had, and they were so grateful to win an iPad. We had 2 iPads. The other thing I want to talk about is trees. We know that in light of climate change, trees are incredibly significant right now because trees deal with air quality, poor air quality, they deal with flooding, and they mitigate heat sensitivity. So while I was working with DOEE, I'm sorry, let me not use acronyms, the Department of Energy and the Environment, they've been my teacher for several years. They found some research that said that there's a direct correlation between rising heat and violence. Rising heat and violence. I was able at the Urban Forestry Administration to see an aerial view of our tree canopy in the district. And when you look at Ward east of the river, you see this big hole. Everything else everywhere is green, but Ward 8 and Ward 7 have this big hole. So they've been working so hard to plant more trees, but guess what? Those of us in disfavored communities, we don't want trees. We don't want trees. Can you imagine why? So first, it's a sign of gentrification. We're going to get pushed out of our neighborhoods. The second thing, it's a public safety issue because it blocks our view shed for our safety. You know, I don't want to walk down the street and I can't see where people are when I can only see trees. And the other thing I learned was something called biofear. Black folks were lynched from trees. That's generational trauma that has come down to me. And that's a reality that we have to look at. So I'm working with these guys at Urban Forestry, and they're like, what are we going to do? This community needs trees desperately. What are we going to do? Because we don't want you to have all these heat islands, and we're responsible for making sure that the tree canopy is as robust over here as it is over there. And it all happened quite by accident. Some moms whose sons, brothers, boyfriends had succumbed to gun violence. They were all killed from gun violence. And they asked if they could plant a tree in the name of their loved one. So I asked Urban Forestry and they said, of course. So as a result of that, we started planting memory forests because we remember their loved ones by planting a tree. So that's how we're able to galvanize disfavored communities to have a vested interest in the benefits of trees. During the pandemic, we had trauma breaks. I remember the day, it was April 15th, it was tax day. The mayor said, you can go outside to the park. That's the only place she would let us congregate, but we had to practice social distancing. So we did these trauma breaks. We didn't have benches at the time. And we just sat on the grass and talked about, we were just there to commune with each other. There were men and women, children were on the playground. And many of us were in tears because we thought we were gonna die. We thought we were gonna die. So imagine there's more fear compounded by the pandemic, and the trauma breaks helped many of us to get through it. So after the pandemic was over, I have good news, you guys. There's some good things that are going on too. So we have yoga in the park. We've got this wonderful woman that does yoga in the park. We do art in the park. We have music and math in the park. This celloist came to Ward 8. He's from on this side. He brought his cello. He taught the kids how to write this music and did it in a math way. And it was beautiful. And one of the moms said that as a result of that, her daughter had excelled in math as a result of music and math. We have science in the park. We had 2 scientists come and show the kids how to dig up worms and look at them under a microscope. They love that stuff. I don't touch worms, by the way. And there's this wonderful doctor. They have Park RX, and she did a scavenger hunt in the park. And she was incredible. At the end, she had the kids write a prescription to their parents. A prescription to their parents to take a walk, to hug a tree, to smell the roses. We also do stream walks. We've got a stream in Oxen Run. There's a young man, Josh Birch, at the Department of Energy and the Environment who takes us on these magnificent stream walks. And how am I doing for time? So this is where I want to leave you. Remember the trauma when you think about the care for our common home. Remember the trauma. I work with kids in our middle schools. And these kids, they're traumatized for much different reasons. Their mothers haven't been home in days. They're sexually abused. They're terrified, and they have to come to school and learn. So when I work with these kids, some of them will take a hug. And now when I go in, they call me the pizza lady because I bring the pizza. But the first thing when they come in, they come to hug me. And that's a sign of kindness. And I go back to care of our common home is about being kind. And the other thing is not being afraid. If you've never been east of the river, I remember some folks I talked to were like, Brenda, it's the wild, wild west over there. I'm afraid once I cross the bridge, I'm going to be shot. Well, I respect that because it's how the media portrays our community. Like it is the wild, wild west, but it isn't. And I just encourage you to take the challenge to bear witness yourself to what it is that we have to live with as we care for our own homes. And I'll end with this. When I come up here, I was over here the other day. You guys know that, right? But I was on the other end. And when I walked in there where the quad is, you guys know where the quad is? Mm-hmm. So I walked in where the quad is, and I had to stop because of the beautiful green manicured lawns and all those beautiful flowers. We don't see that. We have brown. We see more dirt than we do green. And we need that to uplift our spirits and to help us to be better human beings. And I think that once we're able to do that, and if we don't start paying attention to climate change, our community is going to suffer the greatest. but it will manifest itself in our behavior that will somehow end up over here. I don't know what that means, but I'm just saying that we have to pay attention to climate change and environmental equity, health equity, because if you're okay, then I'm more likely to be okay. Thank you very much.